Hi guys, so today we're going to take a look at cellular energy processes and food webs. So as a reminder, you do need to be familiar with the two cellular energy processes, so that's photosynthesis and cellular respiration, and you need to know them, okay? So you definitely need to know what's happening during each process. So if we look here, we have photosynthesis this time written out in words, so it says energy plus water plus carbon dioxide is used to make, so produces glucose and oxygen. And we could write that out as well using our chemical symbols. We could have H2O plus CO2 plus C6H12O6 plus oxygen. However, we do need to take into account that the equation needs to be balanced, so we can't be showing that a matter is spontaneously appearing or disappearing. So when we balance it, it always comes out to 6H2O plus 6CO2 plus 1 glucose plus 6 O2 molecules. Okay, and you can count them out. So we're trying to show that we have the same number of atoms of each element on both sides of the equation. So I see I'm a little off center. Okay, here we go, sorry. So this is what we're looking for, okay? Then if we look, this process only occurs in producers. And there's an important chemical that plays a role. So there's chlorophyll. So chlorophyll plays a role as a pigment. So it's a green pigment that's used to capture energy. And really, that's just a simple thing that I want you to know. Generally speaking, when we were looking at the phytoplankton, people identify them. Which ones are the phytoplankton or the producers by saying that they're green. So this chlorophyll is the most common pigment for capturing the sun energy in order to produce glucose. However, there are carotenoids and other types of pigments as well that are not green, but this is the one that we think of most commonly. So there we go. Next we have respiration. So respiration is when we consume glucose and oxygen, and we are making carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And again, we can write out the chemical equation. So C6H12O6 plus O2. Okay, and then we're making CO2, H2O, and energy, this time in the form of adenosine triphosphate, which is a cellular currency for energy. So this can be used in cells for all of your cellular needs. So if we look, we want to just make sure it's balanced again, so we'll add those sixes. All right, perfect, just showing a balanced equation. So no matter can be mysteriously appearing or disappearing. So respiration occurs in all organisms, so every single living organism needs to respire in order to be able to use energy. So it is a necessary cellular process in everything that's alive. And it's a common misconception among students in the area of biology that only plants photosynthesize, and a lot of students, especially in the younger grades, get this idea in their head that only animals respire, but that's not true. It's all organisms. So there's two types of respiration. So there's aerobic respiration. So if you think about aerobic exercise, it's with oxygen. And there's anaerobic respiration. So anaerobic is without oxygen. If we have aerobic respiration, so with oxygen, we just get more energy out of the process, so we get more bang for a buck. If we have anaerobic respiration, we get less energy. However, anaerobic respiration is also responsible for fermentation, which gives us things like alcohol. So it can be interesting as well. So then I drew a kind of silly picture. So I drew a potato plant. So when we think about plants, they are photosynthesizing in order to make their own energy. So I drew a kind of silly potato plant. So this is the part above ground. This is the tubers or the potatoes that we also consume. So they photosynthesize to build this glucose. And in this case, the glucose is being stored as starch in the potatoes. And it's stored for the plant itself, right? But then we actually consume the energy that the plants make. So we would harvest the potatoes, we kill the potato plant, or we just steal its potatoes. Right? And we take it, we rob it from its energy. Okay, so it's interesting. Okay. And I know that you guys love my drawings, so there's my potato plant. You can give me a thumbs up for that one when you see me next. So then in class, we looked at a food web today. So we looked at this marine food web from kelp forests. So kelp forests usually exist like off the coast of continents. So in the example, we were looking at one that was like off the coast of California, according to the events, but they exist off the coast of most continents. Okay. So we built a food web. So this is my food web, same organisms. I did not try to draw them because that would have taken me forever, and then everyone would have made fun of me anyway. So this is the same food web, or the same organisms. So I drew all of the arrows, hopefully. I tried to keep track of them, from my producers, okay, to the consumers. So first I have primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, etc. So we're showing what is eating each thing, right? And then I put my bacteria off to the side, and I drew these dashed lines to show that the bacteria could consume actually any of these things if they were dead or decaying. And then you can see I added some little codes. We were supposed to separate them into different groups. So first I separated producers, and producers were the things that could photosynthesize or make their own energy. So I have a reminder again about the formula. But producers I marked with this little green asterisk. So you can see my phytoplankton, giant kelp, acid kelp, and cyanobacteria were able to photosynthesize. So I marked them with the little green star. Then I marked after that consumers. So consumers must eat other organisms to get energy. So if you look, that's a pink triangle. And I marked all of the other things first with a pink triangle. So everything else. So we had 13 total, so 9 of them are marked with the pink triangle. So that means I have to eat in order to get energy. Then, for this activity, we just had decomposers. So decomposers they eat dead organic matter and decaying organic matter. And we owe them a lot, actually. So they clean up our world. Without them, there'd be just disgusting stuff all over the place. And they also help to release nutrients back into the environment. So our most common examples that we think of are bacteria and then types of fungi. So fungi are things like mushrooms. So if we look, I marked my decomposer with an open circle. So with an open circle here, I marked my bacteria. And in the book, we actually get another category. Okay, so in the book we get, let me move this up a little bit. I need to borrow Mr. or Dr. Gronlin's camera because this is much better than this one that I have here, but I will try to do that for next time. In our book, we also get detritivores. So detritivores are animals that eat decomposing material. So for the detritivores, because they have kind of a similar role to the decomposers, so they eat dead stuff, I marked them with a closed circle. And in that case, I marked the sea urchin and the bat star because they also eat some dead stuff. And in our activity in the past, I noticed that a lot of students also marked the sea urchin and bat star possibly as decomposers, and that's okay if we're only given the 3 categories, but they best fit as detritivores. Okay, so we don't generally think of animals as being decomposers. And then we look. We have a few fancy terms that we need to make sure that we know. So one is autotrophs and the other one's heterotrophs. So autotrophs versus heterotrophs. So autotrophs are self-feeding organisms. So these are all of our producers. So I tried to draw my giant kelp here. I didn't draw it in the bottom of the ocean there. There we go. There's my giant kelp. My giant kelp photosynthesizes in order to make glucose, but then also uses the glucose within the kelp to give itself energy. So we have this circular process here, just showing that it's self-feeding. So it makes the glucose and then it consumes the glucose through the process of respiration. Then on the other side, we've got heterotrophs. So heterotrophs feed on others. So they have to eat other stuff in order to survive. And then I just drew a fish eating another little fish. Okay. So then there are 3 more commonly used terms, so related specifically to the autotrophs. So if we look at autotrophs, these are our common terms. So we have an herbivore, an omnivore, and a carnivore. So herbivores, if you think about herb, okay, so herb, I think plants. So think of organisms that consume only plant matter. So these are the vegetarians of the natural world. So in this case, I'm just showing a rabbit, and it's plants as far as I know. Right? And you might think of it as eating carrots, but it also eats grass or anything that it can really access. So if you ever have a garden with vegetables, rabbits can actually be pests because they'll eat what you're trying to grow in your garden. So we have omnivores. So omnivores consume both plants and animals. So this is supposed to be a plant. This one has some berries on it. And then this is a fish, and I drew a bear as my example. So bears are commonly considered omnivores. And then for my carnivores, I drew a lion. And then as food, because a carnivore just eats meat, I drew this nice like zebra leg here. So he's going to consume this zebra leg in just a minute. So that's his food. So if you think about it, okay, herbivore, that sounds like plants. Carnivore sounds like meat, okay. Omnivore, so omnivore is just a combination. So that's all for today. I'm going to ask you to take notes as you go. Remember, you can always pause, stop, rewind, etc. to get down what you need. Please make sure that you know these terms, so you just have to know them, and if you're not familiar with them already, you need to absolutely know them. You also need to know the cellular respiration and photosynthesis equations, okay?